Matt Taibbi goes to Washington. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is another declaration of truth from your host, Terry A. Hurlbut. Yesterday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, Matt Taibbi dropped yet another Twitter files thread. He did not give this one a number, and instead headlined it Statement to Congress. Presumably, the thread contains, or at least concerns, his testimony before the House Judiciary Select Subcommittee on Weaponization of the federal government. In any event, he titled it The Censorship Industrial Complex. In it, he revealed his insights from examining the treasure trove of correspondence, the posts, videos, graphics, photographs, and other documents and media that form the basis of the Twitter Files series. As ever, I will set the scene, then dive into the thread, reaction to it, and my analysis. But first, I do want to shout out to the prime sponsor of this channel, which is Conservative News and Views. Link in the description. Be sure to check out the awesome CNAV Store. Scroll down near the bottom for that link. Lots of great merchandise there, especially this t-shirt that I've chosen for today, which quotes George Orwell saying, "Boy, did I call it," or what? Well, I don't know whether he ever said that, but I'll tell you this, he did call it. One more thing. If you like what you're about to hear, you can like this video. You can also click the bell icon to get a notice every time I come out with a new one. In fact, do you see the new icon, the heart shape with the US dollar sign in it? That's the super thanks icon. If you really want to keep these videos coming, click that and leave me a tip. Any currency will do, so long as it's legal tender. Now, as I said, the Matt Taibbi, along with his colleague Mike Schellenberger, appeared yesterday before the House Weaponization Subcommittee. As they told us in their last file that they would do that. Now, the hearing began with Representative Stacey Plaskett, Democrat, non-voting delegate from the United States Virgin Islands, who happens to be the ranking member, accusing both men of being direct threats to all who disagree with them. Representative Jim Jordan of Ohio, the chairman, struck that from the record over her vituperative objections. I have a link in the description to a 3.5-minute video capturing that exchange. Taibbi and Schellenberger testified under something of a cloud. Earlier this month, the Federal Trade Commission demanded to know their sources. Elon Musk, as CEO of Twitter, seems to have told the FTC to go pound sand. He certainly protested the FTC's demand as yet another example of weaponization of the government. Such is the background for Matt Taibbi's thread that he dropped before he took his seat at the green table. He describes the censorship industrial complex, the collection of think tanks and government agencies that gave Twitter their orders. And right away, when I speak of orders, I think back, as I have done before, to these immortal lines by the actor Kevin Pollak as Lieutenant Junior Grade Sam Weinberg, United States Naval Reserve, in the movie A Few Good Men from 1992, directed by, of all people, Rob Reiner. Michael Stivic himself. I'll close the curtain of charity on that other name he had. Here is the line. An argument that didn't work for William Colley at My Lai, an argument that didn't work for the National Socialists at Nuremberg. Well, Twitter cannot absolve itself completely for obeying those orders, except to say that they are under new management, with new staff, and are making a clean breast of what they did with an absolute promise never to do it again. No matter at anyone's behest. Enough background. Now to the thread, all 51 tweets of it. I've left links in the description to the odd numbers, beginning with the anchor tweet. And now I'm going to give you the text. Statement to Congress. The Censorship Industrial Complex. When Twitter Files reporters were given access to Twitter internal documents last year, We first focused on the company, which at times acted like a power above government, but Twitter was more like a partner to government. With other tech firms, it held a regular industry meeting with FBI and DHS and developed a formal system for receiving thousands of content reports from every corner of government, Health and Human Services, Treasury, NSA, even the local police in many cities. Emails from the FBI, DHS, and other agencies often came with spreadsheets of hundreds of thousands of account names for review, and often these would be deleted soon after. Many were obvious misinformation, like accounts urging people to vote the day after an election. But other official disinfo reports had shakier reasoning. There's one Twitter analysis that disagrees with the FBI about accounts deemed a proxy of Russian actors. Then we saw disinfo lists where evidence was even less clear. The list of 378 Iranian state-linked accounts, for example. That includes an Iraq veteran once arrested for blogging about the war, and a former Chicago Sun-Times reporter, and the site Truthout. Truthout publishes Noam Chomsky. And in some cases, state reports didn't even assert misinformation. For instance, you got a list of YouTube videos flagged for anti-Ukraine narratives. But the bulk of censorship requests did not come from government directly. Asked if Twitter's marketing department could say that the company detects misinfo with help of outside experts, a Twitter executive replied, "Can't we just say partnerships? For example, I'm not sure that we would describe the FBI or DHS as experts, or some NGOs that aren't academic either." We came to think of this grouping. State agencies like DHS, FBI, or the Global Engagement Center, the GEC, along with NGOs that aren't academic, and an unexpectedly aggressive partner, commercial news media, as the censorship industrial complex. Who are the censorship industrial complex? Twitter in 2020 helpfully compiled a list for a working group set up in 2020. The National Endowment for Democracy, the Atlantic Council's DFR Lab, and Hamilton 68's creator, the Alliance for Securing Democracy, are key. Twitter execs weren't sure about Clemson's Media Forensics Lab, too chummy with the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, somebody said, and weren't keen on the RAND Corporation, too close to the Department of Defense. But others were deemed just right. NGOs ideally serve as a check on corporations and the government. Not long ago, most of these institutions viewed themselves that way. Now, intel officials, researchers, and executives at firms like Twitter are effectively one team, or signal group, as it were. The Woodstock of the censorship industrial complex came when the Aspen Institute, which receives millions a year from both the State Department and the U.S. Agency for International Development, held a star-studded confab in Aspen in August of 2021 to release its final report on information disorder. The report was co-authored by Katie Couric. Yes, that Katie Couric, and I am not kidding, and neither was Matt Taibbi. And Chris Krebs, the founder of the DHS's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA. Yor Roth of Twitter and Nathaniel Gleicher of Facebook were technical advisors. Prince Harry, you heard that right, the Duke of Sussex himself, joined Couric as a commissioner. Their taxpayer-backed conclusions: the state should have total access to data to make searching speech easier, speech offenders should be put in a holding area, and government should probably restrict disinformation even if it means losing some freedom. Note that Aspen recommended the power to mandate data disclosure be given to the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, which this committee just caught in a clear abuse of office, demanding information from Twitter about communications with and identities of Twitter Files reporters. Naturally, Twitter's main concern regarding the Aspen report was making sure Facebook got hit harder by any resulting regulatory changes. The same agencies, FBI, DHS, CISA, the GEC, invite the same experts, Thomas Rid, Alex Stamos, funded by the same foundations, Newmark, Omidyar, Knight, trailed by the same reporters, Margaret Sullivan, Molly McHugh, Brandy Zarojny, seemingly to every conference, every panel. The Twitter files show the principles of this incestuous, self-appointed truth squad moving from law enforcement and intelligence to the private sector and back, claiming a special right to do what they say. what they say is bad practice for anyone else. Be fact-checked only by themselves. While Twitter sometimes pushed back on technical analysis from NGOs about who is and who isn't a bot, on subject matter questions like jabs or elections, they instantly deferred to sites like PolitiFact, funded by the same names that fund the NGOs, Koch, Newmark, Knight. Twitter files repeatedly show media acting as proxy for NGOs, with Twitter bracing for bad headlines if they don't nix accounts. Here, the Financial Times gives Twitter until the end of the day to provide a steer on whether Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and other jab offenders will be sacked. And for your information, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. runs Children's Health Defense, a source I use often. Well, you say, so what? Why shouldn't civil society organizations and reporters work together to boycott misinformation? Isn't that just an exercise of free speech? And not just an exercise of free speech, but a particularly enlightened form of it? The difference is, these campaigns are taxpayer funded. Though the state is supposed to stay out of domestic propaganda, the Aspen Institute, Graphica, the Atlantic Council's DFR lab, New America, and other anti-disinformation labs are receiving huge public awards. Some NGOs, like the GEC-funded Global Disinformation Index or the DoD-funded News Guard, not only seek content moderation but apply subjective risk and reliability scores to media outlets, which can result in reduction in revenue. Do we want government in this role? Let's take a break here because I want to shout out to a sponsor who can really help you through the economic storms to come. The sponsor is oursilverlines.com. You feel like you're working harder for your money just to get by? You are not alone. Fluctuating economy, employment issues, and unexpected changes in life have left many families struggling over the past few years. Collecting gold and silver can help shield you against many of these challenges. But if you're like me many years ago, you don't know where or how to start. Our Silverlines helps by connecting you with thousands of members who are learning the secrets to creating and protecting true wealth by collecting precious metals. Whether you just want to collect rare and unique coins or take advantage of the business opportunities this company provides, either way, they can help you learn to live an exceptional life. Visit oursilverlines.com. Learn how you can build a legacy for your future. Now, let's get back to the thread. Perhaps the ultimate example of the absolute fusion of state, corporate, and civil society organizations is the Stanford Internet Observatory, or SIO, whose election integrity partnership is among the most voluminous flaggers in the Twitter files. After public uproar paused the Orwellian Disinformation Governance Board of the DHS in early 2020, Stanford created the EIP to fill the gaps legally, as Director Alex Stamos explains. Thanks. Now, let me pause to toss this in. CNAV covered this Disinformation Governance Board in 4 articles. I have links to all 4 in the description. Now, let's move on. EIP research manager Renee DiResta boasted that while filling gaps, the EIP succeeded in getting tech partners Google, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter to take action on 35% of the URLs flagged under remove, reduce, or inform policies. According to the EIP's own data, it succeeded in getting nearly 22 million tweets labeled in the run-up to the 2020 vote. It's crucial to reiterate, EIP was partnered with state entities like CISA and GEC while seeking elimination of millions of tweets. In the Twitter files, Twitter execs did not distinguish between organizations, using phrases like, according to CISA, escalated via EIP. After the 2020 election, when EIP was renamed the Virality Project, the Stanford lab was onboarded to Twitter's Jira ticketing system, absorbing the government proxy into Twitter infrastructure, with a capability of taking in an incredible 50 million tweets a day. In one remarkable email, the Virality Project recommends that multiple platforms take action even against stories of true jab side effects and true posts which could fuel hesitancy. None of the leaders of this effort to police speech relating to the virus that shall remain nameless had any health expertise. This is the censorship industrial complex at its essence, a bureaucracy willing to sacrifice factual truth in service of broader narrative objectives. It is the opposite of what a free press does. Profiles portray Renee DiResta as a warrior against Russian bots and misinformation, but reporters never inquire about work with DARPA, GEC, and other agencies. In a certain video from Mike Benz, Alex Stamos introduces her as having worked for the CIA. DiResta has become the public face of the censorship industrial complex, a name promoted everywhere as an unquestioned authority on truth, fact, and internet hygiene, even though her former firm, New Knowledge, has been embroiled in 2 major disinformation scandals. This, ultimately, is the most serious problem with the censorship industrial complex. Packaged as a bulwark against lies and falsehood, it is itself often a major source of disinformation, with American taxpayers funding their own estrangement from reality. DiResta's New Knowledge helped design the Hamilton 68 project exposed in the Twitter files. Although it claims to track Russian influence, Hamilton really followed Americans like Ultra MAGA Dog Mom, Right to Liberty, even a British rugby player named Rod Bishop. When told that he was put on the Hamilton list of suspected Russian influence accounts, Bishop was puzzled. Nonsense! I'm supporting Ukraine, he said. As a result of Hamilton's efforts, all sorts of people were falsely tied in press stories to Russian bots. Former House Intel Chief Devin Nunes, Walkaway founder Brandon Straka, supporters of the Fire McMaster hashtag, even people who used the phrase deep state. Hamilton 68 was funded by the Alliance for Security and Democracy, which in turn was funded by the German Marshall Fund, which in turn is funded in part by, drum roll please, the Department of State. The far worse scandal was Project Birmingham, in which thousands of fake Russian Twitter accounts were created to follow Alabama Republican Roy Moore in his 2017 race for the United States Senate. Newspapers reported Russia seemed to take an interest in the race, favoring Moore, though at least one reporter for a major American paper was at a meeting in September 2018, when New Knowledge planned the bizarre bot and smear campaign. The story didn't break until December, 2 days after DiResta gave a report on Russian interference to the Senate. Interestingly, Twitter correctly assessed the Moore story as far back as the fall of 2017, saying it had no way of knowing whether the Moore campaign purchased the bots or if an advisory or whether an adversary purchased them in an attempt to discredit them. Twitter told this to reporters who asked about the story contemporaneously. Moreover, after the story broke, Twitter's Roth wrote, and I quote, "There have been other instances in which domestic actors created fake accounts. Some are fairly prominent in progressive circles," close quote. And Roth added, "We shouldn't comment." Oh boy. Repeatedly in the Twitter files, when Twitter learned the truth about scandals like Project Birmingham, they said nothing, like banks that were silent about mortgage fraud. Reporters also kept quiet, protecting fellow stakeholders. Twitter stayed silent out of political caution. DiResta, who ludicrously claimed that she thought Project Birmingham was just an experiment to investigate to what extent they could grow audiences using sensational news, hinted at a broader reason. "I know there were people who believed the Democrats needed to fight fire with fire," she told the New York Times. "It was absolutely chatter going around the party." This incident underscored the extreme danger of the censorship industrial complex. Without real oversight mechanisms, there is nothing to prevent these super empowered information vanguards from bending the truth for their own ends. By way of proof, no major press organization has re-examined the bold claims DiResta and New Knowledge made to the Senate. For example, that Russian ads reached 126 million people in 2016, while covering up the Hamilton and Alabama frauds. If the CIC deems it, lies stay hidden. In the digital age, this sprawling new information control bureaucracy is an eerie sequel to the dangers Dwight Eisenhower warned about in his farewell address when he said, quote, "The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists," unquote, Ike. Thanks to Mike Schellenberger and reporters and researchers, Technofog, that's a code name, Helen Porter, Genevieve Campbell, Sue Schmidt, Benjamin Wyatt, and others for help in preparing this testimony. The Twitter files searches are performed by a third party, so material may be left out. End of thread. Reaction, as ever, varies from Whiskey Tango Foxtrot to See We Told You So to Ho Hum. I have links in the description to 8 tweets illustrating all kinds. In the Whiskey Tango Foxtrot category, we have this dialogue raising 2 salient points: that the overwhelming majority of the names Taibbi named are Democrat names, and Twitter being a publicly traded company, Twitter's board could be accused of dereliction of fiduciary duty. Could be, except for one thing. When your majority shareholders have names like BlackRock and Vanguard, your fiduciary duty consists not of being profitable, but of acting like the Ministry of Information for the kind of United Nations that the BlackRocks and the Vanguards want to build, or to turn the existing UN into. Another user tweeted out, "Welcome to 1984. Now, he didn't tweet out the classic and likely copyrighted image of the bright gunmetal gray V along with the legend Ingsoc on it, but instead tweeted a picture of a man wearing a policeman's combination cap with a badge labeled Thought Poll and a dialogue balloon saying, "Looks like you've had a bit too much to think," close quote. Still another user tweeted this, quote, "The sad too long didn't read part. First, government had total access to data to make searching speech easier. Second, government and a censorship industrial complex that included mass media colluded on a massive operation to control information and narrative, even if it means losing some freedoms." Then another user raised a point that he found sadder still, namely that this is the very definition of fascism, and people seem to be okay with it. And indeed, many, like Ranking Member Plaskett, who call themselves Americans, are copacetic with this sort of behavior. Another user asked, who monitors the monitors? Well, you've heard the Latin expression, I'm sure. Quis custodiet ipsos custodes. I'm going to close the curtain of charity on the rest of the tweet. Apologies to Mark Twain. Another user spoke of his suspension from the platform for sharing about certain side effects. And he wondered how many lives might have been lost as a result. Now, that's a matter of opinion, of course. But unlike Brian Stelter, formerly of CNN, I encourage you to do your own research to see whether that opinion is reasonable. But of course, we also get the ho-hum reaction, calling it a nothing burger. But another user is just as quick to put that person in his place. Then there's another user who flat out said she wants protection from misinformation. I wonder what Benjamin Franklin would tell her. I can tell you that another user jumped on that and said we are backsliding from the Enlightenment into an information dark age. And now, my analysis. Actually, 3 good men said this for me long ago. I have links in the description to actual source information, documents for quotes on liberty, which I will list one by one. First, I turn to Benjamin Franklin, who famously said, quote, those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety, unquote. Today, the ones feeling unsafe are mainly Democratic Party office holders. They asked for the censorship, they formed the censorship industrial complex, and they benefited from it. Now they fear the government, or at least the House of Representatives, turning against them. Stacey Plaskett made that abundantly, if rudely and unprofessionally, clear. In fact, let me give you some ancient history. The Senate of ancient Rome seated the Varian Commission to punish those who advocated for extending the Roman citizenship further in southern Italy, which is to say the Italian allies, or socii, whence social war. Well, after Rome won that war, the Senate decided to extend the citizenship anyway as part of the peace. And then the Varian Commission became the Plautian Commission to punish those who had opposed extending the citizenship. The J6 Committee and the Weaponization Subcommittee are the modern counterparts to the Varian and Plautian Commissions. We go on to my second quote by George Santayana. Those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. The Weaponization Subcommittee is deeming that doom now. And Taibbi and Schellenberger's testimony yesterday are part of that process. The latest unnumbered Twitter file serves as another part. And in closing, I leave you with this from Lord Acton. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Links in the description to the article, to the video from the Weaponization Subcommittee hearing opening, to the thread, to articles about the Disinformation Governance Board, to the reaction, to those 3 quote sources, to my Declarations of Truth Twitter account, and to Conservative News and Views. I've also left links to the awesome CNAV Store and to oursilverlines.com, as I also mentioned. You know already about how to like a video, turn on notifications, and leave a tip. On the end screen, I'm going to leave a subscribe link to my channel and links to the Twitter Files playlist, the State Actors video, and to that video from Forbes that were that 3.5 minutes of exchange from the WEP Subcommittee. This is Terry A. Herman delivering another declaration of truth and reminding you to let the truth set you free.